Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to another video up on the channel. I'm going to be working with the new camera today, so if it looks a little bit weird, we're working on that, but thanks for sticking with me, and if you enjoy what we do, please hit subscribe. Now, you may have heard that Biden is starting to throw migrant children back in the same cages that Donald Trump was talking about when he was in office, and that lots of us were railing against when we first saw it. Now, is that true? No, but we'll get into that. What he did do, though, was open up a new facility that's actually an old facility that Trump used to use, and this one opened up in Chorizo Springs, Texas. Now, when I was referring to children in cages, I had a very specific thing in mind when I was talking about that. Some people now I see were thinking of something different, but for me, and I feel like lots of other people who were talking about this, we had something in mind. This is usually what I had in mind. These children sitting in cages, they had metal benches, they only had basically the floor to sleep on. Reporters were very unlikely to be able to get in. They weren't COVID safe at all. Nobody really knew what was exactly happening, and the conditions in there seemed to be extremely inhumane on so many levels. This is why lots of us wanted to move away this incredibly disgusting way to be holding kids. And another thing on top of that was that lots of these kids didn't even come alone. They came with family. They were just taken from them to be lost in the system, to be abused and mistreated away from the eyes of the public, and that was a massive problem. So if that was the case, and if we don't like the way that lots of these kids were being held, why did Biden reopen this facility in particular in Chorizo Springs? Well, actually, since November, the amount of unaccompanied minors reaching the border and seeking asylum in America has just exploded. And our system is almost at maximum capacity. It shows down here that coming into February, late February, we're coming up to 7,100 kids who've come across the border into America. And our capacity right now is almost 8,000. So we are rapidly getting up towards the maximum capacity for our system entirely. Now, how much of this is on Biden's fault as himself? Well, I think a little bit. The fact that his administration didn't have a really big plan for how to rehouse lots of these migrant children moving into February. He's known that he's won the election since early November. He's had all of this time to plan on what to do with these kids all the way up until February now. He should have had a better plan. Now, with that being said, you can only do so much once you're in office for what's it been? Like basically a month, maybe just a little bit over that now. He couldn't have built like a massive structure to house a lot of these kids just overnight. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and he better be moving towards that. And with that being said, the way that these children are being handled in this facility in particular, is not anywhere near as bad as the way that they were being handled in the pictures that we just saw prior. I don't want to lie about what's going on and tell you that they're being kept in cages. And I don't want to lie and tell you that that these kids are having like the absolute time of their life. The system needs to be fixed entirely, but don't let people tell you that it's anywhere near as bad as what was happening under Trump. We can actually look inside of this facility and what it actually looks like, though. So this place, these pictures, just to keep you updated, these pictures were taken in 2019, and they have bunk beds, they have an infirmary, a cafeteria as well. They're given shoes and clothing. They're giving schooling as well, and lots of places for recreation. They're taught English, and while they're here, what's supposed to be happening is that they're being looked to be put in permanent housing with family members or relatives, or be put through the foster care system, something along those lines. But they're not being deported the same way Donald Trump was deporting children at the border. This isn't happening. And with that in mind, and with us being slammed when it comes to unaccompanied children at the border, I was honestly of the opinion that there isn't really too much else that we could be doing right now. And the way that lots of people were handling the situation really made me a little bit upset, because what do we do, right? You hear a lot of people get really angry about this, but almost none of them have an explanation for you as to what we should be doing better. I've heard things all the way up to the government should start renting out hotels to put the kids in, which on its surface seems cool, I guess, but that would absolutely turn into a fucking hotbed for child traffickers. Can you imagine that? Like all of these kids all of these kids with almost no oversight, just stuck here, barely knows how to speak English, if they know how to speak English at all, just walking across the border completely unaccompanied. They can just easily be picked up and taken into human trafficking. It can be an incredibly big humanitarian crisis on the border. And the fact that they're not kept in one place, it makes it a whole lot harder to keep track of them, make sure that they're safe, and also give them the things that they need to actually survive and get the requisite teaching that they need, and put them through systems that would be a lot better for them, like foster care, like their actual parents. And we sure as fuck cannot let them just walk across the border and stroll on into the country. They are children. They're going to once again get scooped up by child traffickers. We can't just let them walk around unaccompanied. If any like 9-year-old kid would be seen walking around at nighttime in any city, I think that they should probably be picked up by local authorities, because that's a massive you can't have that. That being said, it's not like this facility is anything great, right? Biden and Harris said that they opened this place back up because we're almost at capacity when it comes to how many migrant children we can hold, period. And with COVID restrictions, it makes it even harder, and we need even more facilities open to even make sure that we're all sticking within guidelines and people aren't hotboxing COVID with each other. And while I said that these facilities are nowhere near as bad as the cages that we've seen along the border, it's not like this place is great. Vox actually has a really good balanced article about Biden's decision to open this facility up. He's also looking to open up another facility in Florida. We can touch on that in a second. But to answer the question, is this being held by a for-profit system? The answer is no. It's actually a non-profit that's holding this. Are the kids being held by ICE? The answer is no as well. They're not being held by ICE. They're being held by HHS. And specifically the HHS's division for the Office of Refugee Resettlement, or ORR. But actually, the facility he wants to open up in Florida is ran by HHS as well, but it's also ran by a for-profit system, something that should not be happening, period. Now, I mentioned before that this facility was open under Trump, but it wasn't open under Biden, and then he opened it again. So what happened there? So basically, there were lots of problems at this facility. Some of those problems were assault, neglect, overcrowding, lots of these really big problems that the Biden administration is going to have to eliminate for this place to be anywhere near suitable for children to be. And with it being a little bit far away from actual communities and not inside of cities where lots of people will be able to see the children a lot, they'll be able to talk to the children, it is worrying that this place is opening again. They said it was supposed to be temporary, but lots of things that are supposed to be temporary aren't always. So I'm not necessarily sure if we all should trust Biden when he says that this facility is supposed to be temporary. There are more things that we could be doing. What were other problems that were going on? Well, a report was actually made about it from the American Friends Service Committee, a nonprofit organization, about the facility, in particular about the health risks that it poses to children and the people working there in general. And they went through an exhaustive amount of research into 2019 about the site and how safe it is for people to be there, and they made a conclusion about what they saw. According to the EPA, the U.S. Air Force, and Miami-Dade County, the property surrounding the Homestead Temporary Shelter for Unaccompanied Alien Children is contaminated and unsuitable for residents' use, school, childcare, or hospitals. The shelter is directly adjacent to the active Superfund site that remained contaminated at levels exceeding what is allowed for industrial use. Given the lack of samples collected within the shelter, the decades-long presence of harmful contaminants, the acknowledged poor handling of toxic materials and pesticides, and the storage of dangerous contaminants directly adjacent to the shelter, were concerned that hazardous materials and unsafe concentrations are present at the shelter area. Also, it goes on to say the noise level that you get from it being right next to an airport is not good for children as well. There are lots of problems with the site. That's why it shouldn't really be open. That on top of, like I said, abuse happening with these children, and how not a lot of these places are too well staffed by people who are, you know, vetted for child abuse. This article in particular goes on about the shelter that the Biden administration is thinking about opening in Florida. This is not about the one in Texas that we were talking about originally. This is about the one in Florida. Mind you, they're still thinking about opening it, and they could very soon. So like I said, there are lots of people who are very angry with the detention of children. I personally think that when unaccompanied children come to the border, they have to be taken in some way, shape, or form. They have to be taken in, and I would more likely appreciate the government doing a good job having a good intake system for a lot of these children than for them to just kind of like meander around and try not to get scooped up by child traffickers. That sounds like a really big problem. Now, mind you, lots of the government hasn't been able to take a very good care of these children, period. I would rather have them be working in conjunction with nonprofit to help with the intake, or just being able to do it better. But not too many people I've heard of have been throwing out good ideas for what to do about this. But nevertheless, that doesn't mean good ideas exist out there. I just haven't heard too many of them. And that's why lots of people are saying, hey, listen, like, we know this isn't the best system, but there isn't too much more that can be done. And I generally agree with that, but there are also good ideas out there for what we can be doing. Oliver Torres works for the SPLC. He's there for their Immigrant Justice Project, and he has a couple of things to say about what was happening on the border. We can read a little bit of that. The Biden-Harris administration is reportedly planning to reopen the Homestead Detention Center to detain unaccompanied migrant children. The detention center was last used in August 2019 before closing, following reports of sexual abuse and the revelation that the facility did not have a hurricane plan despite detaining up to 1,200 children. The detention of immigrant children is a repugnant, morally indefensible practice that must end. Our communities know all too well the human cost of subjecting Black, brown, and indigenous immigrant children to prisons and away from their families and communities. Given the history of appalling abuse at Homestead and the Biden-Harris administration's own stated values, we are deeply disappointed that the administration is poised to reopen this prison, especially while more humane options are readily available. The Biden administration must end the cruelty of child detention. There are community-based, humane alternatives to detention, such as NGOs, nonprofits, and community sponsors that are ready to safely care for migrant children from the safety of homes. These options are safer and less traumatizing and end our reliance on private detention corporations. I think that's a great idea. But the intake, just period, I'm not sure it can be handled by non-government organizations. If they can, I'd like to see that happen, but more in cooperation with government organizations to have that happen. He's also expediting and paying for the services to get a lot of these children into the hands of sponsors and family members as fast as possible. It doesn't excuse this place from being open right now, just period. But on short notice of what's going on right now, I'm not sure how bad for this facility in particular to be open. If it's able to be open to the public, that lots of these problems are looked after and are not there for an extended period of time. Right now, they're looking to be staying there for about 100 days. Hopefully, we can bring that number down and they can be in the hands of sponsors and or family members as soon as possible. That's a must. So wrapping this all up, are these the cages that people were talking about, that people were railing against, period, before the election? No. Did Biden and Harris vow not to open up these shelters before? Well, actually in 2019, in 2020, when Harris actually visited this facility in particular, the one in Texas, she said that she was going to make sure that this didn't open again. Would you look at that, a month later, it's open. Did they just do this for fun, like as a meme? No. We are being slammed with migrant children at the border right now, and we're almost at complete capacity with that. And it's harder and harder to keep these children safe while still respecting COVID-19 social distancing restrictions. Is this facility good? The answer is pretty much no. It's not. It's not that great. It's been known to have contaminants in the ground that may infect some children. It's near an airport that has a whole bunch of noise pollution. It's not near any communities. That needs to be fixed. All of that needs to be fixed. And we need to make sure that we move away from this sort of like detention government style holding of children for long periods of time, and make sure that they can get into the hands of sponsors and families as fast as possible. But the way that I feel like lots of people are going about it is not really conducive to making the world a better place at all. But we need at all, but. And this is a lot better than how they were being kept before under Trump, but we have a long way to go on that to make sure that we have the most ethical system possible for the intake of migrant children who are unaccompanied at the border. So, with all that being said, that's where we are right now. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, can you hit the like button, please? And if you watched all the way this far, you should hit that subscribe button. It would really help us out. Get us to 1,100 subscribers on YouTube. Whew, is that a big number? But until then, peace.